You're not tired, you're spiritually drained. We keep saying, I'm tired, but maybe it's not your body. Maybe it's your soul whispering, I'm not okay. You've slept, you've rested, maybe even escaped for a weekend, but still, the heaviness lingers. In your chest, in your eyes, in that quiet place behind your smile. What if you're not tired? What if you're spiritually drained? Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor, Stoic philosopher, and one of the most grounded minds in human history, knew this feeling long before burnout had a name. He ruled an empire, faced war, plague, betrayal. And yet, in the margins of his journal, he wrote quietly to himself, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In a world shouting for your attention, it's no wonder your soul feels silent. But what if the way back to peace isn't more doing, it's more being, less noise, more depth, less scroll, more soul? If this message finds you at the right time, maybe you were meant to read it. And if you felt something stir inside, even a small nod, a little, yes, that's me, then we're already walking the same path. We're building something gentle here, thoughtful, human. If that speaks to you, please consider liking and subscribing. It means the world to our little work. And it helps keep these words flowing to those who need them most. Let's breathe deeper, together. Stop saying you're fine, when your soul is not. We've all done it. Someone asks how we're doing, and we answer on autopilot, I'm fine. But deep down, there's a quiet ache, not dramatic, not loud, just this sense that something's off. That ache isn't from your body, it's spiritual, and no amount of caffeine, scrolling, or treat yourself moments can fix it. Because the truth is, you're not tired, you're spiritually drained. Marcus Aurelius, writing in the quiet hours between battles and state affairs, understood this exhaustion. He didn't call it burnout, he called it being out of alignment with reason, with virtue, with what the Stoics believed was our inner daemon, our guiding spirit. He knew that when you keep saying, I'm fine, while your soul is quietly unraveling, you're not just lying to others, you're betraying yourself. Here's the hard part. Being honest about that emptiness takes courage. It's easier to perform the part of the functioning adult, ticking off boxes, staying busy, keeping up appearances. But spiritual fatigue doesn't fade with more productivity. Marcus might have told us today, don't numb the soul with noise, listen to it. He didn't live in our age of endless distraction, but he understood how easily the mind strays, how the soul starves when we ignore it. You don't need a perfect life. You need an honest one. And sometimes the first honest step is saying, I'm not fine right now, but I want to be. That's not weakness. That's the beginning of strength. Protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. We've been taught to give our time, our attention, our help, our yes. But no one taught us the cost of constantly pouring from a cup that's already running low. The exhaustion you feel right now, it's not laziness and it's not weakness. It's what happens when your spirit has been overdrawn without ever being replenished. Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic emperor who carried the weight of an empire, knew something we often forget, that not every demand deserves your response. He wrote, ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? That's not just productivity advice, that's soul preservation. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, you are saying no to something that might heal you. Your peace, your creativity, your rest. It's easy to confuse being busy with being useful. But the Stoics would ask, are you living in alignment with your values or just surviving the day? Spiritual tiredness often shows up as irritability, numbness, that nagging feeling like you're living someone else's life. That's your soul trying to get your attention. You weren't meant to be available to everyone all the time. You're not a resource. You're a human being with limits, sacred ones. You're not just tired. You've been giving parts of yourself to everything but your own well-being. And the most radical thing you can do is to start guarding your energy like your life depends on it, because in a way, it does. Start saying no where it matters so your yes can finally mean something again. You can't heal in a hurry, slow down, or break down. We live in a world that worships speed, faster replies, quicker goals, instant results. But the soul? It moves slowly. Healing doesn't sprint. It walks quietly, patiently, often without any visible progress at first. If you've been feeling exhausted no matter how much sleep you get, disconnected even in a room full of people, there's a good chance it's not physical tiredness. It's the emotional weight of rushing through life while something inside you is still hurting. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled a vast empire and faced constant chaos, somehow found time to reflect, to write, to slow down long enough to hear his own thoughts. He reminded himself, no great thing is created suddenly. That includes peace, that includes you. The problem is, we keep trying to outpace our pain. We think if we just keep moving, we won't have to feel it. But the pain doesn't disappear, it just waits. It sits in the background, quietly draining us until one day we can't ignore it anymore. That's what spiritual exhaustion is. The soul's way of saying, I've been carrying too much, too fast, for too long. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, if everything feels urgent, here's your permission to slow down. Not because you're failing, but because you're healing. Because nothing inside you can grow while you're rushing past your own heart. Slow down. Not everything sacred makes noise. Sometimes the most powerful turning point is a quiet moment where you finally stop and listen. Your peace doesn't have to be loud. Choose stillness over performance. Sometimes the exhaustion we feel isn't from doing too much. It's from pretending too much. Smiling when we're breaking. Saying it's all good when nothing feels good. Posting the highlights when real life feels like a mess. And slowly, without noticing, the soul begins to slip into the background, unseen, unheard, and unbelievably tired. This isn't just burnout. This is spiritual drain, the quiet collapse that happens when peace becomes something we perform instead of something we protect. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." He didn't need a stage or validation to find calm. He found it in stillness, not silence, but stillness. The kind that comes when you no longer need to prove anything. You're not just tired from your schedule. You're tired from performing a version of life that doesn't feel aligned with your spirit. That gap between who you really are and who you think you need to be, that's what drains you. And the only way back is to stop running from your inner world and start returning to it. Even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's quiet, especially if it's quiet. Stillness isn't weakness. It's where your soul can finally breathe again. So today, give yourself permission to not show up for the performance and just show up for you. Peace doesn't need an audience, just honesty. Stop carrying what was never yours to hold. So much of the exhaustion we feel isn't from our own lives. It's from the weight we've picked up along the way. Other people's expectations, their problems, their emotions, their unspoken needs. You might not even realize it, but you've become a container for burdens that don't belong to you. A quiet fixer, a silent absorber of pain, someone who always shows up, even when no one asks how you're doing. And eventually, the soul starts to sag under the pressure, not because you're weak, but because you were never meant to carry that much. You're not just tired, you're spiritually drained from trying to be everything for everyone. If your shoulders feel heavy right now, ask yourself gently, what am I carrying that was never mine? Maybe it's time to hand it back. Or simply let it go. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to protect your peace. Not everything that's broken is your job to fix. Set it down, not because you don't care, but because you do. Starting with yourself. Your worth isn't measured by your productivity. We've been conditioned to tie our value to what we do, to how much we accomplish, how efficient we are, how much we check off the list before the day ends. And over time, without even noticing, we start confusing our busyness with our worth. But here's the quiet truth no one tells you until your soul starts to fray. You are not a machine. You're a human being, not a human doing. And the tiredness you feel right now? It's not because you're lazy or unmotivated, it's because you've been measuring your self-worth by your output, and your spirit is quietly breaking under the pressure. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "So we love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." How many times have you ignored your body's call to rest or your heart's longing for stillness just to keep up appearances? Just to feel useful? But the truth is, your value isn't something you earn, it's something you already have. Whether you're crossing off 10 tasks or doing absolutely nothing, your soul doesn't become more or less worthy. It just is. You are not behind. You are not failing. You're simply exhausted from carrying the belief that your value must constantly be proven. And maybe the most radical, healing thing you can do today is stop, not because you've earned a break, but because you deserve one, just as you are, right now, worthy without doing a single thing more. Don't abandon yourself, just to be accepted by others. There's a kind of tired that sleep won't fix, the kind that comes from constantly shrinking, shape-shifting, and silencing parts of yourself just to be liked, approved of, or simply tolerated. If you've been feeling hollow, unsteady, or like you're living someone else's life, that's not tiredness, that's spiritual abandonment, and not by others, by yourself. You've slowly distanced yourself from your truth in the name of belonging. But here's what Marcus Aurelius knew, even back in the 2nd century. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. And when your thoughts are always wrapped around who you should be instead of who you are, your soul starts to disappear. This kind of exhaustion is sneaky. It shows up as people-pleasing, as over-apologizing, as agreeing when something deep inside of you whispers, no. You go along to keep the peace. You bend so others won't break. And little by little, your spirit dims. Not because life has beaten you down, but because you've walked too far away from your own center. That's the real burnout. The one no one sees. You don't need to become someone else to be loved. The version of you that feels things deeply, that questions, that hopes, that gets overwhelmed sometimes, that version is worthy too. You were never meant to live a life based solely on others' expectations. That's not peace. That's quiet suffering. So here's the truth. You're not just tired. You're drained from abandoning your own truth in rooms that never deserved your full presence to begin with. And maybe today the healing starts by coming home to yourself, by choosing your own voice, even if it shakes, by not editing your soul just to keep the connection, because the people meant for you, they won't require your exhaustion as proof of your love and your spirit. It's been waiting for your return. Let go of the constant need to be strong. Somewhere along the way, you learned that being strong meant never falling apart. That real strength was holding it all together no matter what. Showing up, pushing through, smiling even when it hurt. And maybe it worked for a while. Maybe people admired your resilience, your ability to handle everything. But now, you're exhausted. And not just in your body, in your spirit. Because constantly being the strong one eventually becomes a kind of quiet prison, a performance, a burden your soul was never meant to carry alone. Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic emperor, faced wars, betrayal, loss, and still wrote in his private journal, "Don't be ashamed of needing help. You have a duty to be helped, just as you do to help others." That's strength, not the pretending. Not the pretending you're okay when you're not strength. But the honest, human kind, the kind that admits, I need space, I need support, I need to let go for a while. So if you're feeling tired in a way that no nap can fix, ask yourself, what kind of strength have I been trying to prove? And what would it look like if I gave myself permission to just be? Because the soul doesn't need you to be unbreakable. It just needs you to be honest. And sometimes that's the strongest thing of all. Before you go, let this land softly. If you made it all the way here, through every quiet truth, every hard-to-swallow lesson, every whisper from your soul that said, yes, this is me, then maybe you're not just reading. And if that surprises you, good. Maybe it should. Because for so long you've been carrying the idea that you needed to do more, be more, hold it all together, keep smiling, stay strong. But today, here, now, you paused. You listened. You felt. And that's not a small thing, that's everything. And hey, if this stirred something in you, even just a breath of relief, a pause in the chaos, wow, I didn't know I needed to hear that. Consider liking this. Not because it's content, but because this little space we're building, it matters. So yeah, stay. Subscribe. Not for me. For you. For the version of you that's been holding on quietly, waiting for something real. We're not chasing viral, we're chasing truth. And I have a feeling like if you've read this far, your soul just whispered, don't forget this place and you're going to need it again. So come back, comment something surprising, something raw. Or just say, I'm here, because sometimes being here is the bravest thing of all.